Hello again, everyone. Edwin Leonard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Mercury, square, opposition, or inconjunct one's natal black moon Lilith. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Mercury, well, they could be about communications, assimilating information, mobility, siblings, cousins, neighbors, analysis. And when we're talking about transits that involve basically when you're talking about a transit of Mercury that's basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal black moon Lilith, well, this may manifest in communications, assimilating information, mobility, siblings, cousins, neighbors, analysis. This might conflict, um, well, for one thing, with the negative manifestation of the sign. It could be that somebody could be a sibling, a cousin, or neighbor, somebody that was prominent in your early education or in your short journeys. Somebody might be really disagreeing, really in conflict with maybe some negative, very negative energy of the placement that you may be expressing. Say, for example, if you have the Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius in your natal chart, it could be rather idiosyncratic, rebellious, or overly non-conforming behavior. Um, I'm not saying you're going to climb the walls and put suction cups on your hands like Spider-Man or something, but it could be just some very, odd quality, for example, that these people may not really be in agreement with and calling you out on. It can be also to keep in mind. I mean, the transits of Mercury are not very long. They last in days. They could last a little longer. Say, let's say for example, if the transit of Mercury starts direct, but then shortly after it starts direct, it goes retrograde, and it might hit, stay in that aspect to your Black Moon Lilith a little bit longer. But I mean, you're talking about days of the Black Moon Lilith, and it's not very long. They last a little bit longer than transits of the Moon. Transits of the Moon last roughly 10 hours on average. These transits can have some significance, but you're going to get a number of them every year. But anyway, another thing, the Black Moon Lilith is associated with formidable adversaries, and this can be a situation where, if you're trying to reconcile something or communicate with somebody that's been a very, powerful enemy for some time. Say if your Black Moon Lilith is in the seventh house or in Libra, it could be a very strong legal adversary. It might be harder to, get in touch with this person, or the communications just simply may not go well during this time. Now, Black Moon Lilith is also connected with trauma, whether it could be physical, it could be emotional, psychological, could even be some kind of abuse, which I wouldn't think would exclude sexual abuse. So these can be things that you might have a harder time articulating and verbalizing at this time, more so than usual. I would say, especially if you have like Scorpio. Um, the Black Moon will say is in Scorpio and or the eighth house, and might increase a propensity for some kind of sexual type of abuse. The Black Moon will say is in Scorpio in your fourth house. That might be some very powerful sexual, maybe perhaps abuse from it could be a family member, or someone prominent in your home life, or someone you felt uh, close to home with. Now, I did have somebody that I know has the Black Moon Lilith in her natal chart, which at least makes at least a loose conjunction to her natal Sun, and and it's in Scorpio. And many of you may know the Sun is associated with the biological father in astrology, and the Black Moon Lilith can be connected with abuse. Scorpio could be very, sadistic energy and vengeful, and even I would say could be more nefarious in Scorpio as opposed to the other sons. And she claimed that she had been raped by her father, and I believe this was in her fourth house in her natal chart as well. But just the fact, if you have that conjunction, Black Moon was in the Sun with her, sadly it manifested in in that, I believe, what I just described, and it's just terrible. But anyway, when you have the transit Mercury to the natal black moon, it might be very harder to articulate those things. Now, the thing about this is the black moon is also connected with what we don't want to unveil, what we want to keep suppressed, underground, so to speak. And it can be a situation, since you're having basically an adverse aspect being made by Mercury. Well, it could manifest in a number of ways. One way it might be expressed, there may be communications that come out about something you didn't want to unveil, that that might really be, might come to your detriment. If it's, say, if you have the black moon, again going back to the 8th house, it might be some kind of criminal record, as an example. Or say if you have your natal black moon in Taurus, it could be maybe a side that might be very greedy or avaricious, or a person that just don't want to pay, might make monetary promises but won't fulfill them. Another thing too is that the black moon is connected with the dark side it could be connected with the dark side of the person as well. It can be nefarious energy. It might be a situation where you might have a harder time maybe trying to analyze or understand or comprehend your own dark side in you. Say if the natal black moon is in Virgo, it might be an overly maybe pedantic or hypochondriac side, if that word even applies anymore. As somebody that's overly, I guess you could say, judgmental or critical, as an example. It can be, an Aquarius could be very idiosyncratic behavior. Gemini could be maybe even really like dual behavior, very overly mercurial, vacillating energy, two-faced energy. Now, another thing too is that the black moon is connected, like I stated before. It could be connected with a very powerful or formidable adversary, but it could also reflect a person that plays a very provocative or prominent role in your life scheme. Now, this could be a situation where somebody that might maybe playing a dominant role in your life may be conflicting with issues with mobility or local transportation. It might be causing a distraction, or maybe what could be happening is that you have to do things connected with local transportation, such as running errands for people that may be conflicting with you, with the activities you may want to engage in with this person that has played a prominent role in your life. Say if your natal black moon is in the zodiac sign Cancer, as an example, it may be a Cancer sun, moon, or ascendant person, or simply one that embodies Cancerian characteristics. Now, another thing is this. The black moon can be connected with trauma, as I stated before, abuse, which would exclude sexual abuse. Sometimes, if you experience some physical trauma, perhaps mobility might conflict with mobility issues, getting around, driving, as an example. And it might also be harder black moons can be connected with obsession and fixation, so it might be a little bit harder to verbalize these things at this time. And you might be trying to assimilate information and connection. It could be with a person or a certain subject that you might be fixated on. You might be having trouble doing it at this time, because you're talking about basically an adverse, this is an adverse aspect for the most part that is being made to your natal black moon lilith. The black moon lilith can also be associated with death, so it might be harder for you to articulate and communicate about matters pertaining to death, and being overly morbid or morose at this time. Anyway, well, another way this transit may manifest and pan out, it could be about siblings, cousins, or neighbors may conflict with you, perhaps trying to attain the higher level of this placement. Say, for example, if your natal black moon lilith is in Aquarius, it might be, maybe you're trying to make some contribution to astrology or astronomy, or doing something over the internet or with computers, even innovation at this time. And it could be a situation where these people may be conflicting with that. Another way this transit may be expressed, it could be local transportation issues, Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, well, as I was stating before, another way that this transit may be expressed, it could be about local transportation issues. Um, it might be due to some physical trauma you may be experiencing. Say, if the natal black moon Lilith is in Sagittarius, there may be some issue with the hip or the sciatic nerve or thigh or even the liver. It may also be harder to get news, perhaps in connection with a person that may be playing a provocative or prominent role in your life scheme. Let's say, for example, if the natal black moon Lilith is in Taurus, it may be a person that could be a Taurus sun, moon, or ascendant person, or simply one that embodies Taurian characteristics. It can be a situation too where it might be difficult for you to articulate the side that you don't want unveiled. If your natal black moon Lilith, for example, is in Leo in the fourth house, it might be maybe a domineering or arrogant attitude in your home, or maybe you've been dominated by somebody in your home, or it could even be some where you might either be exiled or ostracized from family that might be overly, you might see as overly arrogant or pompous, or they act like they're too good maybe to include you in it. And it's also there might be difficulty in trying to verbalize or articulate a void in somebody's life. The black moon could be like that hole, that empty aspect in your life. And say, for example, if your black moon is in Scorpio, it might be some matters connected with power or control issues in your life, and maybe you feel there's a strong inability or an aptitude in terms of dealing with crisis or being resilient, being able to bounce back from adversity, as some examples. Now, if the natal black moon will say is in Aquarius under the 11th house, there might be some issues like with friendships or goals or aspirations that might make you feel like you're inept, and it might feel like that could be a very strong void in your life at this time. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Leonard saying, stay well.